the short term. The long term, honesty is always the best policy. I've seen a lot of signs of Trump declining. I predict Trump is going to have some type of collapse within the next 12 months at the current trajectory.
That's one of the world's biggest conspiracy theorists, Alex Jones, basically foretelling the future. Hi, I'm Mediaite funding editor Colby Hall, and that Alex Jones clip was from actually almost 2 weeks ago, in which he went long on why he suggested that Trump was in a serious health crisis.
Trump does sometimes, 2 a.m. TV and radio interviews. I know he sleeps less than 4 hours. He's 79. He's been through 9 years of hell. Look what 4 years does to other presidents. They age incredibly fast. And so he's on a lot of the time, but like a light bulb that's starting to go out, it gets brighter, it gets dim, it goes in and out.
Now, if you were blissfully offline over Labor Day weekend, then you missed a pretty massive story, or at least rumor mill, that happens across all social media platforms. And that is the idea that President Trump was gravely ill or even dead. That's right, Trump is dead was trending on X, formerly known as Twitter. Some of the most bizarre and irresponsible things were posted on social media. Like that game of telephone, one suggestion on social media gets promoted by another, and suddenly there's a frenzy. And people are not just questioning whether or not President Trump is healthy, but are pretty sure that he's not, and there's some massive cover-up.
I'm definitely going to need to text my boss and let them know, I'm going to need the rest of the day off to process this.
That guy looks like my grandpa. He's got, this is not him.
Look at his body posture, his hands. This just does not look like the same Trump that was talking crazy.
No, this was such big news and got everyone in sort of a frenzy that even traditional outlets, cable news, digital online YouTube shows, addressed it.
So is Donald Trump going to die? Well, we're all going to die. Is Donald Trump going to die today?
Like the social media burst of is he healthy? What's actually happening? What color is his hat? What's going on here?
At one point, the term Trump is dead was even trending on social media. Not true.
Cutting to the chase, Trump is still alive. He's hosting events at the White House. He was golfing this weekend. However, for a guy that loves being in the public eye and doing a lot of interviews, the fact that he disappeared from sort of public presence for roughly 6 days is notable. It's not like him. And that's what sort of fueled a lot of, frankly, irresponsible conjecture that he was gravely ill or worse. So let's get back to the breaking down the conspiracy of how this came about over the weekend. Again, part of it blew up because it was the Friday of Labor Day weekend, and most news people checked out. I know that I did. I didn't pay attention to this until it sort of landed in my inbox on Sunday. I couldn't believe it to be true. Of course, it wasn't true. But how did it come to be? First of all, you have to realize that President Trump has had some health issues that were even addressed by Caroline Leavitt in press briefings.
In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit.
Now, is this just part of his medical issue, what I guess is called a venous insufficiency? Possibly. His aides have said it's because of handshaking and aspirin, which, I don't know, might be true. But there were also viral images of sort of bizarre bruising on his hand that didn't make any sense. Some say that it's a condition that's known as chronic venous insufficiency. But his aide said that the bruising was from handshaking and aspirin. I mean, if you want to believe that, that's fine. Could be true. We don't know. But the bigger context, you have to include, of course, Vice President J.D. Vance in an interview with USA Today saying this.
Well, and if, God forbid, there's a terrible tragedy, I can't think of better on-the-job training than what I've gotten over the last 200 days.
Of course, that went viral. God forbid, if something were to happen to President Trump, he'd be there to step in. And it made it sound as though, wait, what does he know that we don't know? And of course, that fueled the fire. What was missing from this interview that did not go viral was what he said just beforehand.
Are you ready to assume the role of commander-in-chief? And why should Americans trust you to lead the country?
Well, I've gotten a lot of good on-the-job training over the last 200 days, but also say that the president is in incredibly good health. He's got incredible energy. And while most of the people who work around the president of the United States are younger than he is, I think that we find that he actually is the last person who goes to sleep. He's the last person making phone calls at night, and he's the first person who wakes up and the first person making phone calls in the morning. So yes, things can always happen. Yes, terrible tragedies happen, but I feel very confident the President of the United States is in good shape, is going to serve out the remainder of his term and do great things for the American people.
Again, these conspiracies actually sort of blow up in a vacuum of context and information. So if you knew that J.D. Vance was asked about this and said all these things beforehand, doesn't make any sense. What he said was kind of predictable pablum, which is what he's known for. Now, whether it was Trump or someone managing his social media feed, seemed to address this by posting something about golfing with former Raiders football coach John Gruden. But that didn't pass muster because internet sleuths realized that that image was probably from a golf round at least a week earlier. So that just kind of raised suspicion, raised more eyebrows across the vast internet conspiracy realm. So this was debunked when Trump was spotted playing golf in Virginia from a camera very far away. But even that was raised speculation that that was somehow a body double. Now, regardless of your politics, the good news is that President Trump is healthy, right? He's alive. Back to Alex Jones, he explained kind of very well back on August 20th or 21st exactly why he has very specific health concerns about President Trump.
So I really want Trump to cut the work days to 14 hours, not 20. I mean, here's an example. They looked at his schedule last week when he went up to Alaska, and he was seen doing interviews and getting on and off airplanes and things in a 35-hour period, and every hour or so he was doing some interview or talking to officials and doing meetings and events. It looks like he didn't sleep. You can't do that at 50. You can't do it at 20. You sure as hell can't do it at 79.
But Alex Jones is in the business of coming up with theories that can't be proven to be wrong. And he does make some points about just the physical makeup of a 79, almost 80-year-old president who isn't in great shape, who works very hard. The ravages of age, none of us are immune to them. As we saw with President Biden, people can sundown and get old really quickly. I'm not saying that's where Trump is now. Those who don't learn about history are condemned to repeat it, and I think Trump won't get the same pass that Biden got by the media. Again, all of this was debunked. Trump was playing golf, and he's making appearances. What really went down? Most likely, he took a few days off. Everyone deserves that. Certainly, he's not the first president to check out the last week of August. There was an interesting post on social media where someone swears that they saw Melania Trump at Walter Reed. Walter Reed, of course, is the naval hospital where the president gets treated. Now, if that's true, and I don't think it necessarily is true, and Trump dipped from public space, well, you could argue that maybe he had some sort of elective surgery, like a cosmetic operation or service done to him. Wears tan makeup. He has uniquely blonde hair. He was recently mocked by the Drudge Report for his thinning pate. Maybe he had some sort of tuck or implant done. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, and it would be something that he'd want to keep quiet. I'm purely speculating. I don't know that to be true. But if he dipped and had a medical procedure that he didn't want made public, good for him. I don't care. As long as he wasn't putting the nation at risk, you know what? Do you? Anyway, it was a crazy weekend for speculation. This was one of those conspiracy theories that crossed over to the far extreme on the left, which is just as prone to dopiness and absurd hyperbole as our friends on the extreme right. Again, the vacuum of information leads to these conspiracies. They're almost always not true, but it's fun to think about, fun to talk about. Again, I'm Mediaite founding editor Colby Hall. Please click the like and subscribe button for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.